Rescue Hoist Operations is one of the most impressive things medevac units do. You're literally hanging beneath a Black Hawk helicopter on a cable. And that cable, well, it's roughly the length of a football field, goal line to goal line. Imagine hanging beneath a Black Hawk helicopter by an entire football field. And that's not even the most impressive part. The impressive part is the crews controlling the aircraft, inserting a medic safely, and safely bringing that medic and patient back inside the aircraft for a safe departure. Alright guys, in order to talk about the rescue hoist, we have to reference the Rescue Hoist SOP. It's what governs all rescue hoist operations in the Army, at least. Now, the Hoist SOP breaks down hoist operations into 4 phases. Phase 1 is en route, Phase 2 is operational, Phase 3 is recovery, and Phase 4 is departure. Now, so you guys can conceptualize what's going on in each one of these phases, we're going to break it down as if we are en route to a hoist site on a real medevac mission. That way you guys can understand what's going on firsthand. Alright, let's set the scene, guys. We're hanging out in the duty shack. We just got done with our morning run-up to assume medevac duty. We've gone out there, we've run up our aircraft, we've done our hit check, and most importantly, since we're talking about hoist, we've done our hoist power off and power on checks. Those are your 2 operational checks that you're going to do in the morning before assuming medevac duty, and those checks are actually outlined in the UH-60-10. So all of that has been done for the purposes of our medevac scenario. Alright guys, so we're sitting in the duty shack, we get that medevac. We all run into the CP area and we start recording that 9-line medevac. PI and crew chief are going to get the grid and make their way out to the aircraft, and they're going to get that aircraft ready for engine crank and also get that 9-line medevac put in the FMS. PC and medic, we're going to stand by, get the rest of that 9-line, and then we're also going to get O&I brief, weather, and launch approval, whatever's necessary depending on the tactical situation. The medic's also going to try to get that MIST report to see what type of situation they're going into. Now on that 9-line, we have line 4, which is special equipment. Now on line 4, if we're going into a hoist situation, it's going to require a hoist on that 9-line. Now, just because it says hoist, that decision is going to be left up to the crew and ultimately the PC once they get out to that hoist site. The ground force is pretty knowledgeable on what they need. However, we know our aircraft capability the best, and when we get out there, we might determine that we can still land this aircraft with ease and still get that patient. Remember, the best hoist is no hoist at all. Alright, 5 minutes out, 5 minutes out. That call is going to cue everybody to start running through their checks. So, me as pilot not on the controls, the first check I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my calc performance page in my FMS, and I'm going to confirm that we have OGE capabilities to perform hoist operations. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say clear for hoist power on. The hoist operator in the back is going to say clear for hoist power on. I'm going to take my hoist master switch, put it to on. Hoist operator is going to then say 3 lights, 3/8 talking on the pendant. I'm then going to respond back by saying got you on the pendant. That's letting him know I can hear him transmitting through the pendant. And the 3 lights, 3/8 call is him letting everyone know he has an operational working hoist pendant. Alright, so the next thing that's going to happen is the hoist operator is going to let everybody know that the test arm switch is confirmed in the armed position. This check's important because it is now arming the squib inside of the hoist system. So in the event we have to cut the cable, that squib is armed in order to cut the cable. The next check that we're going to do is we're going to confirm that the ECS is off. A lot of times the medic does this and they're just going to say ECS is confirmed off. The point behind that is eventually you're going to open the cabin door, and that cabin door is going to block the environmental control system. if the environmental control system was left on, it's blocking that air intake, and you wouldn't want to do that because it could potentially destroy the system. So they're going to confirm that it is off. The next thing that's going to happen is they are going to say conducting first set of buddy checks. What these checks do is the hoist operator and the hoist rider are going to check their tethers to make sure they're going to go to the retaining rings on the cabin floor. They're going to make sure that they're secured into those rings, trace them back up to themselves to make sure they are secured to themselves, and then they're going to check each other. After the first set of buddy checks is done, they are going to say, advise when 1 minute out and below 80 knots, which will take us into our next phase of the operation. 1 minute out, 1 minute out. This is going to take us into the operational phase. So we're 1 minute out, we're below 80 knots. Hoist operator is going to say, clear to open cabin door. I'm going to say, clear to open cabin door. He's going to open that cabin door. He's going to say, cabling down to secure load. That cable is going to come down. He's going to secure the load. They're going to move into second set of buddy checks, checking their restraint tethers, making sure they're hooked into the helicopter and those restraint tethers are hooked onto them. He's then going to say positioning hoist rider outside of cabin door. The hoist operator is going to sit in the cabin door. The hoist operator or the hoist rider is going to stand between his legs. He's going to be hooked to the hoist, and he's also still going to be hooked into his restraint tether at this point in time. At this point in time, he's going to say, advise when you're at a stable hover and 2 points of reference. Pilot on the controls is going to say, stable hover, 2 points of reference. PC is going to say, clear to conduct hoist operations. At this point in time, the hoist rider is going to disconnect from ICS and disconnect from his restraint tether, and the hoist operator is going to start cabling down. Now, I'm not a hoist operator, but those calls sound very similar, so he'll basically say, medic is below the cabin, medic is at 5 feet, medic is at 10 feet, medic is at 20 feet, and eventually he'll say, medic is on the ground, medic is disconnecting from hook, and then he'll say, cabling in, and then eventually he'll clear the aircraft to fly away. Once the aircraft is cleared to fly away, they will fly away to 2 places. The Hoist SOP outlines 2 methods. Method 1, you can, depending on the tactical situation, as always, you can position the aircraft to another point, basically on the objective, but away from where they're doing their patient handover. And it also says you should go higher so you can get a better view of what's going on the hoist site. And you should position the aircraft where the pilot on the controls and the hoist operator can visually look at the medic conducting their patient handovers. Also, so you could see the medic signal for pickup if they have commo failure or something like that. The other method, and probably the most preferred method you see, is they conduct like a loitering orbit off to the side of the hoist objective. And that basically looks like modified traffic patterns out to the side. And then the whole time, the medic or the ground force is staying on comms with you and keeping you updated on what's going on. I do not recommend bothering the medic too much when this patient handover is going on. This is probably their most busiest time of the mission at this point, if I had to guess. And I typically like to check in with them every 10 minutes, but a lot of times we're off the X so fast we don't even have time for a commo check at this point. The medic radios back to the aircraft letting us know they are ready for pickup. This kicks off the recovery phase of the operation. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my FMS and I'm going to confirm that we still have OGE power to conduct hoist operations. Hoist operator in the back is going to say conducting buddy checks. Me as the pilot, not on the controls, I'm going to look back and I'm going to visually watch them do their buddy checks to be their second set of eyes to make sure they are still tethered into the aircraft and they can safely conduct hoist operations. As we come back over to the hoist site, hoist operator is going to say, Let me know when you're at a stable hover with 2 points of reference. Pilot on the controls is going to say, I'm at a stable hover, 2 points of reference. The hoist operator is going to say, cabling down to secure load. Cable's going to come down. He's going to make sure the cable hits the ground, or the medic is going to make sure that the cable hits the ground to get rid of that static electricity. Once it hits the ground, they're going to pick the hook back up. They're going to hook themselves and the patient back into the hoist. Now we can get into several pieces of extraction equipment but for this situation, we're going to assume that it is a rescue seat. So the medic is going to come up with the patient for this situation. The hoist operator is going to say, medic and patient are hooked in, cabling up. They're going to then say, load is off the ground, load is at 15 feet below the cabin, load is at 10 feet below the cabin, load is below the cabin, load is at the cabin, and then they are going to secure the load inside of the cabin. They are then going to unhook the hook, and then they are going to cable that hook back in to stow the hook, and then they are going to close the cabin door. And the medic is going to secure the patient, go into operating whatever they need, and then the hoist operator is going to say, clear to fly away. So once we get the clear to fly away, that initiates our departure phase of operations. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, clear for hoist power off. Hoist operator is going to say, clear for hoist power off. I'm going to turn the hoist power off, and the hoist operator is then going to say, test arm switch confirmed in the test position, which is going to disengage that squib in the hoist because we don't need that anymore. And then the hoist rider, or our medic, is performing patient treatment at this time, and we are on our way to the hospital, and that concludes all 4 operational phases of hoist. Now there are 2 methods of hoist operations. The first one is static, which is the method that we just went over. There's also dynamic hoist, which I will have to cover in a future video if you guys are interested in that. What I do want to spend the rest of the time of this video covering is what you can be expected to have to do in order to get hoist qualified. This will give you guys some predictability if you're getting ready to go to a MEDEVAC unit and you've never been hoist qualified, what you're going to have to do. Now the initial hoist qualification is pretty extensive, to say the least. When you first get to your unit and you get hoist qualified, you're going to be required to receive 6.5 hours of academic training, which is going to be followed by a written exam that you must pass. After that, you'll then move into the hands-on portion. The hands-on portion must be 2.5 hours at a minimum, and you're going to receive training on commander-approved extraction devices. For our unit, it's the Scud-Co and the rescue seat, but this varies by unit depending on what the commander puts in the extraction device memo. And in that training, you're also going to receive post-flight and pre-flight of the hoist itself. After that, you'll move in to the flying portion. Now you must fly 2 hours day, 2 hours night at a minimum for a total of 4 hours. Now, you're going to be required to do dummy loads from 25 feet, 50 feet, and 100 feet with all associated EPs. And then you move into live load training at 25, 50, and 100 feet. Now, the hoist TSP also specifies that you need to do training from both the left seat and the right seat. Now, you don't have to do 8 hours total. It's still 4 hours, but a portion of your training needs to be from each seat. And then, congratulations, you're qualified on hoist. Actually, there is one last thing that you have to do to be completely hoist qualified, and that is a 300-foot cable reseat, which is essentially a post-flight inspection of the hoist itself. And you just come to a 300-foot hover. Hoist operator cables the hoist out all the way until it is fully extended. You set a 30-second timer. When that 30-second timer is up, the cable comes back in, and it's essentially checking that the cable is in good working condition and the hoist is working the way that it needs to. And then that's it. That is a required item actually in the hoist TSP that I left out. Alright guys, that about does it for today's video. We hit all 4 phases of hoist operations, at least for static, and we went over the hoist TSP just a little bit to give you guys an idea of what to expect when you get to your unit. I really hope you guys took something away from this video. If you did, please give the channel a subscribe, give the video a like, and until next time.